sorry, geophysics, and he is also a PhD from the University of Oklahoma in geosciences and air sciences. Currently, he works as an exploration geophysicist at SierraCol. So without further presentation, I give the floor to Carlos.
Thank you, Victor. I'm gonna share my screen with you. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, I can see the full screen. And now
okay,
I can see the presentation.
Okay, I'm gonna project in full screen. I'm gonna turn on the laser pointer as well. Okay, I got it. So you see my screen and also the pointer. Yep.
Yes, I can see the screen.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you everybody for coming. Thank you, Victor, and all the student SEG and EAGE student chapter for this invitation. So I want to talk today with you and discuss with you guys my experience about being a reservoir characterization guy in this changing environment related with unconventional reservoirs, because I have experience in unconventionals in US. I did my PhD degree and I worked there in some companies in US. And I also work here in Colombia in enhanced oil recovery. And I had experience also in US working in that topic. And something that is very, very popular right now, where in my opinion, we are gonna have a lot of job opportunities in the future, is something related with the CCS, or carbon capture storage. So with that introduction, well, just let me say something that is, please, any stupid comments, ideas, or everything is just blame me. It's not responsible the company where I'm working right now, or the APG, SEP, Victor, or all you guys that invited me. So this is something that you know, when you get time, you need to be sure to put on at the beginning of the presentation. So with that in mind, just let me show you that is in the outline of this presentation. First, because this is going to be focused mainly in the CCS and CCU, I want to talk about the CTO emission and negative budget that we have. And also, I want to share the experience and all the forecast projection that we have now in terms of getting net zero in 2050, especially in US. Next, I want to talk about the CO2 trapping mechanisms, the importance of the enhanced oil recovery and reservoir characterization in these CCS and CCU projects. It's going to be very short. I want to talk about the unconventional, the importance of the unconventionals in reservoir characterization in US, because it was my PhD specialization. I know about it. I know more about that you know, honestly, in CCS. And finally, I'm gonna get some remarks and some thoughts for you related with all these issues. So let's start with this one. It's a very good slide to show, like it's really hard to deny, you know. Everybody knows that we are increasing our CO2 concentration in the atmosphere, and this is probably one of the best places to show that. Is an island in the Hawaiian US in the middle of the Pacific. So that you see here is that this trend is a seasonal trend, but this is very clear that we are increasing the concentration of the ppm CO2. When you see in a longer scale, the script is an oceanographic institute associated with the University of San Diego in California, show how this trend is getting higher from around 320 to more than 430 now. CO2 ppm concentration. So the previous record, it's represented here, the Mauna Loa Hawaiian record is represented here in this red line. And you see here, those are other two very famous levels over the past 10,000 years. So the green one is the low dome ice core, and the blue one is the Taylor dome ice core. That you see is incredible. You know, it's hard to deny the higher concentration of the CO2 that we have in the atmosphere related with the emissions, you know, and the full carbon and the full fossil fuel combustion. So that you see here is that is a problem that is generated mainly by the North Hemispheric countries, especially Europeans and North American, and unfortunately, some countries with a lower emission, like a Colombia, for example, where we are right now, or South Africans, we are going to have the worst consequences, getting more water dry or a mix of water and dry in the future related with this climatic change. So that is generated because we have a negative balance, you know. When you see this balance between 2007 and 2015, in general, approximately 50% of the emissions remain in the atmospheres. So that's the issue, that we produce more than that the oceans and the land can absorb. Even though there are new data, I read a paper in Nature this week, even though that probably they are a better efficient in the land absorption, more than 50% or nearly the 50% of the emission remain there in the atmosphere. So in a World Energy Outlook scenario by the Energy Agency, US Energy Agency, so we are around here where we got like a 36 gigaton of CO2, okay? And the projection in the future to 2050 are in different colors here under different scenarios. So in the blue one is it's called the state policy scenarios. That means all the effort after Paris, Tokyo, Glasgow, etc. meetings. But as you see here, is not good enough to reduce the temperatures. That we know that to avoid a climatic catastrophe should be under 1.5 Celsius degrees. So the second scenario is they call APAs, is the enhanced place scenario that double the investment and the financial for the next decade. So even though we are double the efforts, the countries, we don't see like a reduction, significant reduction in the warming in the future. So there are two scenarios, additional scenarios. That is the SD or Sustainable Development scenario, and the ideal, that is the next year scenario. So don't get like emissions for 2050 to get like that target that we want. It is not get like a warmer climate higher than 1.5 Celsius degrees. So to get that scenarios, we have like a different efforts. We have an effort in efficiency in air conditioning, power, building, etc., which are represented here in blue. Okay, that reduction in the GTCO2. We have and also a contribution by renewables. So we reduce the CO2 emission by fossil fuels. And also we have in this portion the fossil switch, also the CCUS. The CCS or CCU, there are different acronyms for that, but CCS normally means for carbon capture storage, and the CCU is for carbon capture. U is for utilization, because sometimes for new source of energy, like for example the blue hydrogen, we need to capture the CO2 that is generated during the process. Okay, so in any way we need to capture CO2. for reduce to the SDS scenario that it was this one here, okay? We need to get like a 9% of the reduction in the emissions, okay? And that 9% of reduction in the emissions, well, is gonna be a really high effort, you know, a gigantic effort in terms of all the projects and also the infrastructure that we need to get that. For example, right now we are in the US, 77 CCS project. We are capturing 37 empty CO2 per year. That's good, but that you are going to see in the future is that to get that target, the 9% target, we need to get like a 3.5 gigatons to be captured and stored by 2050. How that means, how that looks in the future. So we are here. So, and you see like is about several order of magnitude, you know, the difference between where we are and we must to be to get that 9% reduction. That means a significant increase of the project in the future from now to 2040. This is the current rate. We have like experiment like a rate of the 10% per year on all this kind of project, but we are gonna have like we need like have like a 25% year rate of the increase of these kind of projects, you know. It is needed for 2040 at least more than 2,000 CCS facilities operating to get that target. And this is to get a relationship with the global production. This is the global production in pre-pandemic in terms of CO2 emissions. That's a lot. And the cap is for that. So the money that we need to get in investment for that is going to be between 600 and 1.2 trillions of dollars. So that's a lot of money. So where we have the chance to get like a geological storage. So we have chance in highly suitable in US and Canada, and also in the Gulf of Mexico, of course, in the Middle East. So where we have like a lot of emissions and fields, those are ideal places to get that CO2 captured. Another good places are the saline aquifers, but they have some restriction. We don't have a lot of knowledge. We need to acquire more data. So where we have like the reservoir, where we have the seismic, where we have the pressure data, where we have all this information are normally related with the zones where in the world where we have like a oil and gas accumulation and we explode there. And also, we mentioned before that the CCU is when you need like a capture in some transitional technology like the blue hydrogen. Probably you have read or mentioned about it. And the good point is that all the skills that oil and gas workers have, and we know you are acquiring right now in the school, and I did it before, are key for these transition opportunities and all these projects related with the CO2 sequestration. So this one is to show you how the employment growth in projection for 2030. So that you are going to see is that for the previous APAs and next year scenarios. So there is a lot of loss we are going to have in the coal and oil and gas industry, of course. And we're going to have like an increase of the opportunities and jobs and in bioenergy and power generation and all that kind of green new alternatives, okay? That you see for by regions, the Asia and also the North America, they are gonna suffer for the tremendous reductions of the jobs in the future. And as you see here, we are gonna have a good opportunities related with the CCUS or CCS as well, okay? And also another important topic is gonna be offshore wind and the critical mineral mine. So this is just to show you like how it looks like from now to 10 years, the job offers that we have, job opportunities that we are going to have. Okay, now we are going to talk about a little bit about the projects and how the Americans are doing for this kind of the capture CO2 capture projects. So something that is critical is just identify the regions where we have a bunch of emissions in terms of CO2. So they have identified in US like 14 different hubs distributed in the lower 48. They call lower 48 the area which are related with the 48 states. No included Alaska and Hawaii. So this is the lower 48, the 14 hubs identified, and you see for each these hubs, they are characterized the emissions related with the different industries. Okay, so there is a good one here in the Kansas and Oklahoma with a lot of emission related with all the process of the refineries, you know, because a lot of the oil is refined. The refineries are in Houston, Louisiana, also in Kansas and in Oklahoma. So it is very important to get economic, to get a profit on economic these economic benefit of these projects for the companies to get like a good integration between where are the sources and where the carbon is going to be captured. Okay, and actually in October 2021, 8 states, including Oklahoma, they signed like an MOU action to provide the critical permit and all the support to develop that kind of project. So that just you see here is the refineries is going to be one of the higher CO2 producers. That's why it's important to have like a closer to that spots, places, and the infrastructure to storage the CO2. Okay, so this is to show you where are in the subsurface the condition for that. Some of them are the fossil CO2, so the formations that we know they have the porosity, a good cap rock, a permeability to storage that. Another are the saline CO2. Okay, so the important topic here is try to get like the areas where you have like that's 14, the previous 14 hubs, and also you have the subsurface condition to storage that. So those are some of numbers that the U.S. Geological Survey has estimated for the saline and fossil in a low, medium, and high scenarios to get like that CO2. And in U.S., this one is gonna start and right now is controlled, but is the Federal Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA agency. Now there are a problem that regulate around 740,000 injection wells, and those are regulated by this agency. Okay, to get like a safety and secure underground sources for drinking water and others, and also to prevent seismicity, induced seismicity as well. So that you see in US is something like this, where this UIC program has a distinguished, they distinguish like two different classes of wells for injector wells. One is they call the class 2. The class 2's well are used to inject fluids like a CO2 or brine associated with the oil and natural gas production. But the bad side about this one is that, okay, you are injecting that you produce. It's not like a negative, just because normally associated with the production of the some hydrocarbon, you get the CO2 as a gas. So in some companies, for example, Occidental had done this in the Permian Basin for years. You know, they produce CO2 associated with the oil, and they need to get in and push more oil, and so they inject that CO2 again to the subsurface. That kind of wells are called class 2. But there are other wells which are class C's, which are injected in deep geological formation for the only purpose of the storage the CO2. So those are wells that must be constructed, tested, monitored, funded, closed to the injection activity to be completed. So, and you see the amount of numbers here, that's huge. So there are a lot of organizations, there are a lot of companies, and there are a lot of work, you know, opportunities there for that, at least in the US now. So that's a series of regulation is something very, very new. You see the dates here. So this one is the 2020 Energy Act that was created by the Congress in the US, and they set for this share that is called the share of the Council on Environmental Quality. All the responsible for all the interaction between the agencies for the carbon capture, utilization, and the storage. And they released in June 2020 a report that you may consult here. I'm gonna give you all this link for you guys to check that. And also in November 15 in 2021, President Biden signed the famous job as it was a huge amount of money to build new infrastructure in the US, okay? But part of the money, also 12 billion, it was related with also CO2 and lowering the emissions. So there is a fact sheet with all the projects, and all the money is gonna be floating in US to this. And also in February in this year, Biden administration also announced that they advanced the decarbonization effort for multiple agencies, and there is a report for that. This one is just to show you an example how now looks like all the permits and all the permission that you need for CCUS projects in the US. So you need a permission for land use, for example, for greenhouse gas reporting. Okay, who is the authority or the type of agency to get like the regulation for that? And something that is curious, is funny for me. For example, you need to check like the pore space ownership. Now you are gonna check for the ownership of the pore space for the local stadium and agency and that kind of stuff. That's, in my opinion, that in short words, that's a lot of work for us, for people who is gonna be training in reservoir characterization and subsurface studies, you know, for engineer, geophysicists, and also geologists. So that's kind of the regulation that's now looks like this market in the US, okay? Now let's check about the more geological topics, more geophysical and reservoir engineers topic related with CO2 trapping mechanisms and the importance, why it's important to get like a good background in reservoir characterization and enhanced oil recovery as well. Okay, so now people describe like 4 different mechanisms for trapping the CO2 in the subsurface. One is the traditional structural or stratigraphic mechanism, that this is similar that this is the water or the hydrocarbon storage in the subsurface. So you need like a pore space, you need a structural or stratigraphic traps, and you need a cabra at the top of that, okay? That's one. Now, the other is the residual, when you have the production like the oxide in the Permian Basin, you have the flush of the water, the production, and you put like the CO2 to increase the production, so you can live there in the subsurface the CO2 as well. That's called residual CO2. You have the solubility, so you have the ability to put in a brine, saline subsurface pore space a CO2. So that's another option. And you have a mineral trapping mechanism that is a series of mineral transformation, you know, mineral precipitation related with the carbonates of basaltic rocks. Probably you have heard about some projects in Iceland and that kind of stuff. So this one I don't like too much, but this one is very important to me because show the importance of the trapping contribution percentage. So we are in the order of we need to solve this problem in less than 30, 40 years. You know, we are here. We don't care too much about what happens after 100 years, honestly, you know, because the problem is we need to solve the problem for 2050. So that show here is that it's very, very important to get a good characterization and the structural stratigraphic trapping. And also a good portion is residual as well, of course, and the solubility trapping. So the mineral trapping, well, is important, you know, but it's not gonna contribute too much. So all the tools, all the knowledge, all the reservoir characterization issues related with the subsurface in a structural or stratigraphic trapping mechanism in oil and gas is going to be applicable here. That's the great news. So sometimes it's just to, we comment before starting this comment, it's coming to adapt to the new vocabulary. For example, in oil and gas, we talk about reservoirs. Here in CCS, we talk about the confining zone. We talk in the oil and gas enhanced oil recovery. In CCS is the fate. We talk about seal. In CCS is cap rock, etc. So it's quite similar, the process to get like a project and a reservoir characterization for CCS than is for oil and gas as well. Okay. For this clean energy jobs transition is important, the basic for a reservoir skilled engineers, for example, the efficiency that you put in the subsurface, the CO2 with the water is very important. Then enhance all recovery flows and methods to improve it, of course. The reservoir pressure, capillarity issue, you know, you don't want to break your cap rock. You don't want to break to get like a different reservoir pressure where are going to change like the CO2 properties in the subsurface, as you have a bubble point in oil and gas industry, you know, to study that kind of stuff. You need to get like a characterization of the CO2 in the brines, the different brines that you are going to have in the subsurface as well. You need to detect the injected fluid, how this is stored and keep it there, because the important is to keep it there. And also it's important to prevent and to get like a leak detection. No, don't break the cap during the enhanced oil recovery of this using CO2 or the storage. Okay. The workflow is quite similar that we are training. We have been training for that in the oil and gas industry with the data, structural model, petrophysical evaluation, you know. Everything is going to be quite similar to the oil and gas in terms of the seismic characterization, for example, and we discussed here the detected the inject fluid plume. They are good examples of how the seismic is real for CO2 projects in Norway, how the seismic may help to map and to see how the plume and CO2 is injected in the subsurface. Is it very important, we mentioned before, how the CO2 is response is changing, is response to temperature, pressure, volumes, you know, the interaction with the salines. Here you see a ternary between these a figure that relates like the pressure and the temperature for the CO2 and in different states, similar to the PVT analysis that we got in reservoir characterization for different hydrocarbons. You need to know how is the solubility, okay, of the CO2 and how it is interacting with the different brines. You don't have the same brine, the same quality of water in the subsurface. Of course, it's better when you have more data, when you have like a oil production and gas production. That's why we have a bunch potential, a huge potential where we have the production. Yeah, okay. We need to know about the efficiency of injecting that CO2. All these must be a study, you know, and it's quite similar. It's very similar. It's you know that now it's not methane, it's not gas, it's not oil. Now it's the CO2. Okay. Now I want to talk about the unconventional and the conventional reservoirs in US. I don't know if that's going to be applicable in France or in Europe, you know, But now with the war, now the importance of the gas, I don't know. Let's talk about it. So now US is with Saudi Arabia and also the Russians, one of the three major oil producer in the world. They got a peak here around 2020, and then you got the crash related with the coronavirus. But now we are producing in US closer to the 12, and the projection is to get the 30 very probably the next year, honestly. Yeah, and this is based on the you heard is related with the unconventional, the fracking, which is the technique that combine the hydraulic fracturing with the horizontal drilling. Okay. When you see a projection of the US in petroleum and natural gas, you see that, of course, the greens are going to be higher in the future. But something that I want to highlight here is that even though it's gonna be higher in renewables, one is it's gonna be very important. It's now important. It's probably because of the war in Europe. Is the natural gas. Okay, there is a lot of people working, and also there are a problem in geothermal. Honestly, I hesitate about the importance in the geothermal in the future, and you see why here, because when you split these green renewables energy, you don't see like a good portion of geothermal, at least for the US, you know. The gas is the will power the energy transition. You see now with the problem with Ukrainian. So for the next series scenarios, you see here how much gas with the CCUS and electricity is going to be needed in the future. So in terms of unconventional, that we do is just to go to low permeability rocks. In the past, these are a typical example of sandstone, fine grained sandstone, and this is 5 microns here, the pore space. But we are trying to deal is now to connect the pore space in a lower scales. You know, this is red square is correspond with this one here. So and this bar is 500 nanometers. So is now we are reducing the permeability, because those are reducing and reduction in the permeability. We need to do the fracking that disconnect all this pore space and open it, and still open with the propant. That is these are reservoir characterization and production for unconventional is about it in US. So this is a very quickly to show you how it looks like the reservoir characterization and in an exploration program. Okay, in an exploration program, probably you are Victor or other, you guys are working in studying basin analysis. You need to first to analyze the soil rocks. You need to know about the richness of the rocks in terms of the TOZ, or total organic carbon. You need to characterize what type of carbon is, the maturity, to know if you have this enough pressure and temperature to get the generation. After the generation, you got the expulsion to the reservoir rock. So you need to know that about the porosity and the permeability, the pore throw. You need to know about the fractures, okay, as well. You need to get a seal rock, the cap rock. You need to study the capacity, the integrity, the geometry of that cap rock to get the accumulation. And finally, you need to get the size, you need to get the trap, the geometry. You need to get a structural trap, stratigraphic trap, and you need to keep that in time. That is called the preservation on the integrity of the trap. That's all that you need to find the oil in the subsurface is easy. You just need to know about all that kind of stuff. Simple. You got all in the right time. You got your oil accumulation. And this is in conventional, is not conventional. And I move back and forward. To me, honestly, the difference is that now the reservoir and the seal rock are interbedding, in the same region, and And the trap, instead of being stratigraphic and structural, are more related with the thermal maturity and the pore pressure issues. But all that you learn, all that the techniques that you use for conventional is going to be the same for unconventional as well. So that's my call here. So don't worry about all these new names, technologies, just to adapt to the new jargon, the new vocabulary. But everything is going to be usable for the future. Thus is a knowledge for some companies, because I did my master and PhD degree in Oklahoma. And something that is good in US, we don't have in South America, unfortunately, Victor probably knows, is a good integration between the private companies and the industry. So it's necessary for all these projects related to CCS as well, in my opinion. Those are some remarks to take account. The CCS or CCU is an emerging topic with the great employment opportunities in the near and the long future. We need more than 2,000 CCS facilities to get like that 9% emission decrease associated with the CO2 storage. You know, the oil and gas field provide an ideal repository for the CO2. You know better your reservoir in the oil and gas. Probably you are going to have that good chance to get like a repository for the CO2 as well. Reservoir engineers need to learn about reservoir fluid phases, behavior for the CO2 in brine reservoir. In a similar way, we learned with the PVT analysis and all these analysis for hydrocarbons accumulations. All the technical skill associated with enhance or recover reservoir characterization you got there in the school, and I'm still learning, doing my job. It's going to be applicable for the CO2 storage projects. So the message is back to the basics about reservoir characterization. You are going to use it. And where to learn about CCU, CCS, if you are interested. Well, first, where to study. Of course, you know that guy probably is a good place to see, to be there in where you are right now. In America, they are a good example of Stanford University, Colorado School of Mine. Try to follow that guy there. There are a lot of papers and also study groups there. Aberdeen, Harry-Watt, Stavanger University. You know, that's probably an incomplete list, but some of the I follow. I follow to know and to be aware about the news. The books, you know, the old way as sometimes works. Read the books. There are a lot of publications in these new topics, so it's good. It's good to get a good list of books, APG series, ST, etc. Journals as well. Events, go to events. And the past month it was this virtual event in Aberdeen. And next week we are going to have like the next CCUS conference in Houston, Texas. So remember, I like this one for the first CCUS. It was in 2020. U is for you. It's for you because you use geochemistry, chemistry, metallurgy, mineralization. Capture includes geometry of the trout, geochemistry, also basic modeling, stratigraphy, data analysis, well testing, 3D and 4D geophysical monitoring, etc. Okay. Well, I just want to finish my presentation with this one. Well, when I was younger, I remember that in the school, in the high school, like now my daughter, now the CO2 is the ugly, you know, man. All these gases, it was in the past they were called the ozone killers, you know. And the people say, no, this is a really big problem. We are going to solve it in the future. There's a lot of emission that we have. And you see that, you know, we got it. We reduce a lot of this. Ozone killers. Probably we are going to have the chance in the future with bright minds like yours to get a CO2 net zero scenario. Why not? Okay, that it was the last report last month. So I'm very optimistic, and I think we have a good potential to get that net zero in the future, because every time I see more compromise in countries and also in companies like we are working right now. I'm working right now, you know, there are pressure for capital, because now the capital and the companies that borrow, where they borrow the money, they ask for get like a more net zero contribution, or get more get a balancing on a significant reduction in the emissions. So this is my final slide. It's dedicated to my advisor, Roger Slat. As I told you, some of you on the beginning of the presentation, unfortunately, he passed on February 2020. All that I shared with you today, all I know about reservoir characterization and conventional and CCS is thanks to him. So I think that's it. So thank you very much. I know we have the space for some question, Victor.
Thank you very much, Carlos, for this magnificent lecture. It was very useful to learn more about the different perspectives. And we thank you so much for all the effort and time you take to prepare this. And I'm sure that we all appreciate it deeply. So with that said, we open the round of questions. If someone from the public has some question, they can put it in the chat, or they can turn on their microphones. I can see a question in the chat from Ange Mohammed. The question is, what is the range of a storage efficiency factor?
That's a good question. You know, that's something that is discussed in panels, in presentations and seminars like at the CCUS. This is going to be in the next week in the APG, because we don't know. This is something that we should know. We must study, because I don't like that kind of. I'm gonna get back here. I don't like too much this figure, because you got like the impression with the time you lose like the traffic contribution sometimes for structural stratigraphic trapping, but we are not sure about it, you know. The efficiency is high. There are guys like Esposito, this is a famous guy that he knows his authority in CO2, that say that probably the percentage, the efficiency could be higher than 90%, but it depends about the good reservoir characterization that we have. And also we have not to get a monitoring of that. And we are going to have eyes there, you know, federal, national, and local agencies monitoring that.
Thank you for this question, and also for the answer. Is there any other questions from the public?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, so you can make your question.
Thank you very much, Carlos, for this very informative lecture. And basically, my question is about the scalability of CCUS. And my first question is that, of course, we know we have now learned from you the potential of CCUS, but why is it expensive? How can we make it affordable? And how can we make carbon capture scalable? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we need to get like a combination of government kind of incentives, you know, that could be in taxes or reduction, as is in UX right now, for example. Also, the government may help to get like a better infrastructure, and also kind of MOU agreements, like how we saw here between different states in US, is gonna help. I think it was here, okay? So that definitely is gonna help to reduce the cost and to get more affordable the CCU projects. And something that is called by Bill Gates is the green prime, you know? We need to know that how much effort and money we need to put to get a less emission or the sequestration to get a higher value in your projects. So we need to calculate, for example, if we have like a high emission here this is in New Mexico or Arizona or here in California, but we have the CCUS facilities here, probably it's not gonna be affordable, you know? So that's why the infrastructure, in my opinion, is very important. And that's why the government is putting a lot of effort in America, in US to get that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carlos. We have another question from the chat. It is from Stephanie San Martin. How do you see the opportunities for basalt reservoirs for both petroleum and production and CCS?
Well, I know there are a lot of projects running in basalts, but again, you know that the point is that people say the trapping contribution in terms of percentage of mineral trapping is very low, and we have like a higher percentage with the time. So I also remember for Bill Gates' book, I highly recommend you guys, because that shows you in numbers the issue, the problem is that the money is gonna flow in that project where you have like a good scale of CO2 storage. And that's the problem I see with the basalt and that kind of projects, you know. I don't see like a good trapping contribution in general. But to me, it's interesting. If you are, we are gonna need that kind of knowledge, of course, because I mean the knowledge of petrophysical and mineral formation, because this is gonna affect the solubility. Because we probably are gonna have like a gray zone between the mineral and solubility here. That is very important to have like a good study in petrophysical and diagenesis. Probably this gray zone between these two is in some reservoir could be wider. You know, it depends about the local condition.
Thank you very much for your answer, Carlos. Is there any other questions from the chat? From the audience? There is another question. In comparing current CCS projects in terms of the reservoir, saline water against oil and gas, what is the higher?
Well, now is because something related with the previous question is because the facilities for the fossil storage are very close to where are the emissions. So now we have like a higher chance of to be economic, the CCS project related with the fossil or CO2 storage formation. The other issue is that when we have the saline storage, we don't have too much data that we have in the fossil CO2 storage or the production of or related with the reservoir in the production areas. So now that you see is more projects in US related more with the fossil CO2, they call here fossil CO2 storage formation than the saline. But we need both, you know, in my conclusion, we need both, because we are gonna need more than 2,000 projects from now to 2040.
Thank you very much, Carlos. I think we can conclude the round of questions, and I would like to ask the participants. Oh, we have another questions. One last question. In terms of percentage, how many saline aquifer are used for CO2 compared to other reservoirs?
Well, I don't know. Let me see. I have a slide, a high slide here, maybe. Just give me a second. Where's you see, oh, but I need to, no, I need to end a slideshow and try to find the one high slide I have for showing like the projects running now in US. This one in specific. Let's see if there is info here, but I'm not sure about the answer. Okay, this one. Display. Okay, this one show like, you know, there are right now 84 projects in US, and those are for from 2018 to 2021. And here you see the number for saline and anions or recovery and others. Yeah, I hope that helps to answer that question.
Thank you very much, Carlos, for your answer. Now we close the round of questions. I would like to ask the audience if they can turn their camera zones to make a group picture. Those of you who can.
Yes, maybe he can stop sharing and someone.
Oh yes.
Sorry. Just let me.
I'm handling the snipping, so it's fine.
How can I do it? Sorry, I'm not familiar too much with that.
No,
I'm more.
It's okay. I'm able to take the picture, so no worries.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I fixed my settings. Okay, let's do this.
Okay.
One. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
So thank you guys. I'm gonna send to Victor the slides of the presentation to you. So thank you again very much. Thank you very much
again for your time and for preparing this valuable lecture for us. Now we have some more insights about reservoir characterization and CCUS in other regions of the world. I think it's very important to have different perspectives and integrate all this knowledge in one's career. Thank you very much, Carlos. We appreciate this lecture very much.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.